What happens when you get a cheap mower to fix and you find out that it has two major problems with it that you'll need to fix, otherwise you're not going to be able to use it, let alone sell it? Now, if you hadn't guessed by that introduction, that's the case with this mower, which as you can tell is in pretty good condition. But how did it get like this, and was it avoidable? Well, today we're going to address that issue along with a few others and hopefully try and fix it. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Mower lawnmower, and the problem is that it has multiple problems that we have to try and fix, but the issue is that fixing them could cause us to not make any money when we go and try and sell it. Now, I'm going to try and repair this lawnmower, but yours might be a little different from this one, so it might not work on yours. So if things are not working out for you, like in the video, please ask about it. I'll be glad to answer your questions. Now, the real looming issue about this mower is how little it's worth on the marketplace. Now, what that means is that any money we have to invest into it to get it working like it should will either make us increase the asking price, and if we don't, we won't make anything on its sale. That means we'll have to be very selective when it comes to how we fix the problems, or maybe we don't fix them at all. The problem is trying to sell a mower that has issues is going to be a really tough sale. So in the last video, we found that the top cover holding the recoil is loose, and that's because it's broken in about the worst ways possible. Now, as you can see, this support across the front of the guard is broken, but not only that, the threaded insert has come loose, and that's the main reason why the cover is loose as well, making the recoil tough to use. And if we take a closer look at the guard, you can see that the damage to it is very extensive. But to get a better assessment, we'll need a good view of the damage, so we'll need to take it off the engine. So to start, we'll need to remove the fuel tank by simply lifting it out of the way. Now, as you can see, it has these plastic extensions that allow it to hold onto some openings in the guard. Now, this was obviously done so they could increase the production numbers by making it quick and easy to put them together while on the assembly line. Now, hopefully they were able to pass those savings on to the customers, but I doubt it. Now, there's just one problem with getting to the guard on this engine, and that's taking off the flywheel. And what I mean by that is using my typical method with my two-jaw puller is a bit of a headache because the guard is simply in the way. That means we'll have to use the old method, which I don't like using, and that's because it's very risky. First, I want to apply some lube to the crankshaft to help it come loose. Next, I want to put the nut back onto the threads, but this time only turn it so that it's flush with the top of the crankshaft. Then we'll have to put some sort of a pry bar under the flywheel and then give the nut a couple of sharp blows. Now, if it does not come loose this time, turn the flywheel and then try it again. So this time, as you can see, the flywheel has come loose and is now up against the back of the nut. This is what we want to happen, but don't be surprised if it takes more attempts than what I'm showing you here. Now, since we have this opportunity, we can also check on the flywheel key. We need to make sure it's not sheared, otherwise it'll throw off the ignition timing. Now, it's not sheared, but surprisingly, there is a shear line on it. However, this is not enough to affect the timing versus if it was actually sheared, so we can reuse it. Now, even without the guard off the engine, we can already see a lot more damage to it. The cracking is basically everywhere, so this is not looking very good so far. Now, to get the guard off the top of the engine, all we have to do is remove 5 small bolts, and then we're left with a different issue completely. Now, once the bolts are all gone, for some reason, it still won't budge off the engine. It almost feels like there's one more bolt in the middle of the guard that we forgot to take off. However, that's not the case at all because you can clearly see there are no more bolts. Now, at this point, I can only guess that the guard is sealed to the top of the engine, and I'll need to carefully break that seal. So as you can see, the guard was sealed to the top of the engine, and the reason why is because this part sits over the reed valve for the breather system. And because of lean manufacturing, instead of using a separate plate to close this area off, they simply had this guard do it for them. Now, with the guard off the engine, you can see the extent of the damage, and it's way worse than I was thinking it was. Now, I've already explained my options to remedy this problem, and I'm pretty sure that most of you know what I'm about to do. So first, I've got to get the insert off that cover and then get ready to start tack welding the guard back together. Of course, I am not a welder, so I'm not going to show you the process, but I'm sure you can use your imagination. Now, while I do that, I'm also going to address the recoil, which wasn't a real big issue, but it does bring up a topic of interest. So this pull handle is resting up against the recoil, which is fine, but it really doesn't need to be, and that's because the pull handle needs to be located on the upper part of the handlebar. And because of that reason, I'm going to take out one turn off the spring, and what this is going to do is reduce the stress on the spring because there's no need for it to be wound this much. So something else I just noticed was this cut on the spark plug wire, which if left alone could lead to a no start situation. Now the official fix for this problem would be to of course just replace the coil, but if you know me, that isn't going to happen. Instead, I'll come up with some alternative solution to this problem, but first things first, let's fix the guard, then we'll eventually come back to this one. So here's the guard all patched up, and I even put a coat of black paint on it just to finish off what the factory started. Next, I'll put some sealer on the edge of the opening and also some on the bottom of the guard as well. After that, I'll carefully reinstall it back on top of the engine and then secure all the bolts. So let's talk about how the mower even got into this situation in the first place. Now, after seeing all the evidence and all the problems this mower has, more than likely all of this was due to excessive vibration. That's what shook the bolts free from the adjuster and also loosened the inserts on the guard for the recoil as well. So what would cause a mower to shake so bad that it would cause the bolts to come loose and be able to break thin metal? Well, there are two possibilities, and the first one would be a bent crankshaft. And the second reason would be an issue with the blade, either being damaged or being mounted incorrectly to the blade adapter. Now we can dismiss the first possibility of a bent crankshaft, because the way you can tell without even using a dial indicator to check is the fact that the key is not even sheared. So that basically leaves us with an issue with the blade, which means we'll need to get back down to it and see what's wrong with it. Now I have seen blades that were broken off at one end and not the other, which would make it off balance, and that would cause the mower to shake as well. But when I looked at this blade while it was still on the mower, it didn't appear to be damaged. However, once off the mower, it's a different story. So as you can see, this is the center of the opening for the blade, but the witness mark from the washer tells us that the blade was indeed off center from where it needed to be, and this is definitely what was causing all the vibration and caused all the problems for this mower. So if we take a closer look at the numbers on the blade, what we find out is that this is a universal blade that you can buy at your big box store or at a hardware store. It's meant to fit on different types of mowers by using a special adapter. However, it doesn't work on all brands, this one in particular. So at this point, I think I can tell you what might have happened to this poor mower and how it got to this point in its life. So at some point, the previous owner decided that the blade needed to be changed, either because they didn't know how to sharpen it or because it was just getting too worn out. Now I doubt the blade was worn out because this mower is simply not old enough to have that much runtime on it. But it would appear that they got this blade not knowing which one they needed to get for this particular mower and basically got the wrong one. But of course, instead of admitting defeat, they decided it wouldn't hurt to install the blade even though it didn't fit the blade adapter, and then proceeded to use the mower all the while ignoring that the mower was shaking itself apart. And after a season or maybe two, once the recoil had come loose and the rear wheel adjuster no longer stayed in position, they then decided to give up on the mower and get a new mower to more than likely repeat the same terrible process all over again. Now, I don't blame them for getting the wrong blade because it's a very easy thing to do. The big box stores don't care that you get the wrong one either. They just hope that you install it anyway, and then once the mower comes apart like this one did, you'll just buy a new mower from them again. Now, if they had gone to a dealership instead, they would have done some work to ensure that they would have gotten the right blade in hopes that they'll come back and buy something more expensive the next time. Of course, no one sells this homeowner brand of lawnmowers at a dealer because this is primarily for big box stores, but you get what I'm saying. Now, they could have gone to the big box store and asked an associate for help, but I shouldn't have to explain the level of interest a sales associate would have at a big box store. However, a sales associate at a big hardware store might have been a different experience, but I can't be sure of that either. So what do I plan on doing with the blade? Well, not only is the bolt adapter missing for the blade, but something else I haven't shown you is the adapter. So this is a very unique adapter that requires a very expensive blade, so I can understand the last owner getting the cheaper one. It's just too bad it wasn't even close to working. So how do you find the correct blade for this mower then? Well, find a sticker like this on the mowing deck, and using the model and serial number, enter them in a parts website, and it should give you all the part numbers you need, all for zero cost. Now the problem is at most sites you're going to find that this blade is on back order or not in stock at all, but oddly enough I was able to find them at my local hardware store. However, they want almost $25 for each one, which is a really high price to pay for such a small blade, whereas you can get a universal 20-inch blade for about 60% of that cost. Now you understand the reason why they bought this one then. So even though I fixed one major problem, turns out the problem with the last one is not so cut and dry. I can either buy a very expensive 20-inch blade that'll cut into the profits, or I can figure out a different way to fix the issue with this blade. Now, as you just saw while I was going on about the problems with this mower, I've been doing some maintenance and some house cleaning on it. That way it'll be ready once we make a decision about that blade. Now, there's still a lot more that needs to be done on this mower besides the pressing one we were just talking about, but we'll have to address them and the blade issue in the last video about this mower because, to be honest, I'm kind of had my fill with this mower. Now, I have nothing against finding a good deal for parts you need for your mower, but at least do a lot of research and check and make sure that's going to work on your machine. And if for some reason you don't know how to find the parts or you're not getting the results you want, just post them up and see if anyone responds who might be able to help you out. Also, I'm very certain that if they had installed the correct blade for this mower, it wouldn't be where it is right now. So my question is, are you having a tough time trying to find the parts you need for your project right now? And if so, tell us about it, and who knows, maybe you'll get the answer you're looking for. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.